Sauce the boss in the building. Sauce the boss in the building. About you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Sauce Boss in the building. About you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Sauce Boss in the building. About you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only.
It always means like
Shout out to King Sauce Boss in the building.
Also, animals have like a sixth sense where apparently they could see beyond what we could see. They could see spirits and ghosts.
It's just a yes or no. Pues sí, sí es cabrón, sí, obviamente el jabón se quita. Sí, jabón. El nivel de jabón.
Oh, you do hear La Llorona. Oh, right there, that's the dog.
That's dog howling. Nah, bro. Nah.
It was out of nowhere. It was just quiet, and then all of a sudden, it just go crazy, bro.
Yeah, and it's like in sync. Like they all started going crazy at the same time.
So, I mean, I believe it only because
In 2009, Vladimir, a 25-year-old young man, was killed when his gum exploded in his mouth. Vladimir had a habit of dipping his chewing gum in citric acid to enhance its sour taste. But on his work table, authorities found about 100 grams of an unidentified explosive powder, which he used for his chemistry studies at home. This powder was found to be 4 times stronger than TNT. It's believed that Vladimir accidentally confused this explosive powder with his citric acid and covered his gum with it before putting it in his mouth and chewing it. The explosion was possibly triggered by the reaction of the explosive powder with Vladimir's saliva or the pressure exerted by him chewing on the gum and explosive powder. The explosion resulted in a severe injury that blew off Vladimir's jaw completely. And despite immediate medical attention from emergency services, they were unable to save him. Could you imagine just putting a piece of gum in your mouth and then moments later your head explodes? This is such a tragic and bizarre incident, and may Vladimir rest in peace.
How we run things here.
This is Dr. Disrespect, real name Herschel Beam, and in recent days he's been exposed as being a pedophile. So I don't really follow game culture too closely, but I know that Dr. Disrespect is one of the biggest names in gaming right now. And he's been at it for years. This guy has been a celebrity in that world. But back in 2020, he was banned from the streaming platform Twitch. But he never exactly stated why he had been banned from Twitch. It was just this big mysterious thing that got glossed over. But recently, people started talking about this ban again, but they had no idea what was coming next. On June 24th, the gaming studio that Dr. Disrespect co-founded fired him. Then on July 25th, he tweeted this infamous tweet, where he admits in the tweet that he was knowingly messaging a minor, and that these messages with the minor leaned in the direction of being inappropriate. Basically just coming out and admitting, yes, I am a pedophile, but in the same tweet, he says, I'm not going anywhere. This is all the past. It also should be noted that he kept editing out that line individual minor from individual to individual minor, taking out the word minor. But yeah, this is just the worst thing you could have possibly done in this situation. Then more allegations came out. Allegations from a woman named Lena Love. Lena claimed that Dr. Disrespect offered her a partnership in exchange for free cam shows. She then gave him these private shows and he blocked her. A recent Rolling Stone article also provided some more information on this and claims that Herschel Beam actually continued sending this minor graphic, schmexual content even after he learned from her that she was a minor. We don't even know all this story yet, but I'm sure it's only going to get worse and worse. And I think that he is finally getting all the disrespect that he's always asked for. Join me as I expose pedophile rings and corruption in my new podcast, The Conspiracy Files. It's available on all streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And there's some really important information in these shows that people need to know.
What you're about to see is the horrific footage that was taken from the inside of Willowbrook State School, which was an asylum in New York for children with intellectual disabilities. Viewer discretion is advised.
The doctor had warned me that it would be bad. It was horrible.
This is Willowbrook State School. The name makes it sound like it was a lovely place, but really it was described as hell on earth. Willowbrook was a state-supported institution for children with mental disabilities on Staten Island that operated from 1947 to 1987, and it sat on 375 acres. It was originally designed to hold 4,000 children, but it eventually held up to 6,000, making it incredibly overcrowded. No one really knew what was going on at the school until 1972, when an investigative journalist named Geraldo Rivera received a phone call from a doctor at the school. The doctor told Geraldo about the horrific conditions there and wanted the public to know what was truly happening to these kids. So Geraldo visited the school, and what he found was horrifying. Just upon walking into the school, Geraldo said that the smell was so atrocious that he can remember it even today. It was clear that the kids were being severely neglected and abused. They were living in filth and dirt, their clothes were all torn and ragged, and most of them were covered in their own feces. Their rooms were compared to animal cages at the zoo, but worse. Geraldo created an expose that was aired on TV, and it uncovered physical and sexual abuse against the children by members of the school staff. Not only that, but the doctors at Willowbrook were essentially just conducting wildly unethical medical experiments on these children. Outbreaks of hepatitis at the school were really common, which led to years of terrifying experiments and studies on the kids to figure out why 90% of them contracted the virus within 6 months of entering the school. One of the studies was feeding the live hepatitis virus from infected stool samples to 60 healthy children. The doctors would then sit back and watch as their skin and eyes turned yellow and as their livers got bigger. The kids became extremely sick, but the doctors justified their actions by saying that they were probably going to get the virus anyway. They felt that they weren't causing any harm because they were just kids with mental disabilities. Geraldo's expose shed light onto how kids and people in general with disabilities are treated. The film is called Willowbrook: The Last Great Disgrace, and it's one of the most disturbing things that I've ever seen. The school was officially shut down in 1987 after public outrage, and parts of the building were eventually used for the College of Staten Island. What's also crazy is the fact that Andre Rand, who is a suspected serial killer and connected to a series of child kidnappings, previously worked at Willowbrook as an orderly. One of his suspected victims, 12-year-old Jennifer Schwager, was found buried in a shallow grave behind Willowbrook, but at that point, the school had already been abandoned. The expose is an extremely difficult watch, but it did spark a lot of change.
Bodies were thrown from a ride and smashed into the concrete below in the worst fairground disaster in Germany's history. This case will honestly put you off fairground rides forever. It was the 13th of August 1981 at an evening fun fair in Hamburg, Germany. The place was absolutely buzzing with visitors. Many had flocked to the Hengelgesfeld fairground due to the music, lights, bars, and attractions. There were loads of different rides there to really cater to anybody who was visiting. There were like merry-go-round, slow type children's rides for the kids that wanted to go there, and there was also roller coasters for the thrill seekers. Now, one of the rides that fell into the latter category was Catapult. It was a roller coaster featuring multiple loops and high speeds. This particular ride sounds like my absolute idea of hell. It went from 0 to 80 in just 4 seconds. I used to never be able to handle when my stepdad used to pick us up from school in his Subaru and accelerate at the traffic lights. And there was another equally thrilling ride in operation that night. This was called the Skylab ride. And stick with me for this explanation. This was one of those rides where it rotates in a circle and the carriages go round super fast, and then an arm kind of like raises them up. I hope you know what I mean by that. There used to be one at Alton Towers, I believe it was called the Enterprise. So this ride, the Skylab, was next to the catapult, and that is going to be very key to this disaster. So the catapult ride started to show signs that something wasn't right. I don't know exactly what, but the owner had noticed that there was kind of like weird noises or something, and it was nearing the end of the day, so he decided to investigate. He actually got access to a crane, so he could basically get up to what I believe was the ride's gearbox, remove it, bring it to the ground for like a closer inspection. I think the idea was that an engineer would take a look. Now, having used this crane to get access to the section of the ride, he decided to leave it where it was because he figured he needed to use it again. I think it was a case of like it had taken a little bit of time to get the arm correctly up in the position, so he figured I'll keep it there until I need to remove it. But this would be a fatal mistake. The crane arm remained extended 3 feet in the air, and you may be able to see where this is going. Guests piled into the Skylab ride, eagerly anticipating what was advertised as the final ride of the evening. But as the arm lifted the rotating cars, they started approaching the crane arm that was just jolting out. Suddenly, screams could be heard. In quick succession, the carriages with passengers all inside began slamming into the crane arm. As the carriages were smashed open, the guests inside were impaled. Many were thrown out of the carriages through the air onto the concrete below. In just no time at all, bodies were scattered onto the floor.
About you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only.
Workers
Shout out to King Saul's boss in the building.
Honestly, the injured ones were the lucky ones here. 7 people were tragically killed, and I've seen it reported that between 15 or 16 people sustained injuries and many had to be treated in hospital. So what happened to the man that made this decision and had seemingly caused this tragedy by leaving that crane there? Well, his name was Norbert Witt, and he was charged in connection with the deaths and was given just 1 year probation.
In 2002, 59-year-old Bruce Roberts shot and killed a man who had broken into his home. But instead of calling the police, he did nothing. No panic, no confession, just silence. He dragged the lifeless body into a spare room, locked the door, and carried on with his life as if nothing had happened. For the next 15 years, Bruce lived with the mummified corpse of the man he had killed just meters away. He never moved the body, never told a soul, just kept the door shut and sprayed air fresheners to cover the stench of death. Neighbors barely noticed him. They described Bruce as strange, reclusive, a ghost who lived among the living. His blinds were always closed, his mail piled up. No visitors came or went. Then, in 2017, Bruce died of natural causes. When authorities finally entered his rundown home, they found a shocking scene. Piles of hoarded junk, rotting food, decay everywhere. And in the back room, the dead body. Perfectly preserved by time, dust, and denial. Still lying where it had fallen and still locked in the same room. Bruce was never caught, never charged. He spent the rest of his life living quietly beside the dead.
This doll was specifically made to curse people. It's one of the most haunted dolls that's in the Warrens occult. Warning for you guys don't have to look at the doll if you don't want to, but keep in mind, it could appear in your dreams and give you really, really bad nightmares.
Nah, bro, what the
It's called the Shadow Doll or the Doll of Shadows.
That's very scary.
You never seen this before?
I've never seen that. It's definitely a very scary doll.
This doll is made up of human and animal bones, and it has a human tooth protruding out of it. And its hair is made out of feathers from crows. And it was specifically made for evil purposes through black magic rituals. And the Warrens explain how this curse would work. If you were to own the doll, you would basically take a picture of it, print out the picture, and you would write a curse on the back of the picture, and then you would send it out to whoever you want to curse. If it's somebody that you don't like, or someone pays you to send a picture to somebody, wants to see the picture, if they don't believe it, they're like, it's just probably bullshit. They would start having really, really bad nightmares to the point where their heart would stop and they would have heart attacks. This kind of sound familiar?
Like Krueger?
Yes, kind of in a way, yes. Also, nobody really knows how many people it went through to get into the possession of the Warrens, but there is a story of the people who had it before the Warrens.
Why would they even have that?
I would explain it, bro. It was this couple that loved to collect dolls, and they went to this antique store searching for a new doll for the collection, and the owner of that store practically gave it to them. That's obviously a
Red
number,
flag,
bro. Of
100%,
course,
yeah.
it would take you back home, and automatically
about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only.
Grand jury documents
Shout out to King Saul's boss in the building.
And it shows that the prosecutors in Florida knew that Epstein had assaulted minors years before. And then they cut a deal with him that basically let him walk out scot-free. Now, this is a shock because grand jury testimony is usually very secret. And it's stuff that they don't typically unseal. And this investigation took place in 2006. So this shows that authorities knew in 2006 that Epstein had been assaulting minors. And then they let him go. And it wouldn't be another 13 years until he was finally arrested again and then took his own life. All these documents just go to show that Epstein really was given a free pass. All the people in power, all the rich friends that he had, they all conspired and agreed to let Epstein run whatever ring he wanted to. And if you really study this case, you know that Epstein was connected to the government. There's no doubt in my mind. And these grand jury documents kind of prove it. I mean, how do you have someone who's accused of raping multiple minors get a sweetheart deal, where he's essentially given a slap on the wrist and shown his way out of the building? Oh yeah, if you cater to the rich and powerful, that's how you get a deal like that. The more and more we learn about Epstein, the more people are waking up, but the full truth of this whole thing will never be admitted to. But if you want to be a part of the solution, head to EpsteinJustice.com, sign their petition demanding justice for the victims of Epstein, and send a letter on their website to your member of Congress. This organization wants a body in government to investigate these sex rings and actually, honestly, truthfully investigate them and give the people, the American people, the real answers that we deserve.
People are calling this the Tennessee version of the Casey Anthony case, and it's so similar, it's almost like she studied it for tips. It was December 2019 in Tennessee in the US. Megan Boswell was an 18-year-old mother to little Evelyn. And if you had Megan on social media, you would probably think she was a great mum. You'd never guess anything was amiss. She would post her adorable little daughter with her cute little hairstyles, and from the outside looking in, things looked fine. However, behind closed doors was a house of horrors. This would only come to light once it was far too late for the little girl. Fast forward to February 2020, Evelyn's granddad Tommy started to get concerned. He'd not seen his granddaughter in ages. It seemed Megan was kind of dodging his questions about this and dodging his request to see his little granddaughter, so he eventually reported this to police. But much like Casey Anthony did, Megan actually tried to claim a load of reasons as to where her daughter had gone. She said she was alive and well, being looked after by somebody else. Then she said that the baby was with the baby's dad, but it turned out he was actually stationed in the army and wasn't looking after her at all. She then started claiming that her mum had taken little Evelyn to a campground in Virginia, but there was no evidence of this. She just kept chopping and changing her story. So where was this little girl? And if she really had gone off with somebody else and they hadn't brought her back, why wouldn't Megan report this? An Amber Alert was issued and a desperate search to find the child began. And Megan was regularly interviewed by press, and she just did not give off the vibe of a mum who was concerned about her daughter's whereabouts. She was almost kind of smirking in some of the interviews. As I said, kept changing her story and just really didn't seem like she had any sense of urgency about her whatsoever. And some of her friends even started to come forward saying that the house was a tip and the little girl always looked dirty and didn't look like she was really taken care of very well. Now, pretty soon, the police identified a stolen car which they felt was linked to the case. It was a 2007 BMW, and Megan's mum, Angela, was believed to have been driving it. Now, Angela and her boyfriend, William McLeod, were eventually tracked down in this car, but there was still no sign of the missing baby. The police were almost convinced that the baby would be in the car. And the mum and the boyfriend said that they insisted the car was given to them by Megan as a gift, and they had no idea that it was actually a stolen vehicle. The pair were questioned, but this still led us no closer to finding the little baby. Very conveniently, when Megan was asked to take a lie detector, she actually started claiming she was pregnant, and she'd never said this before. Tragically, the search for the little baby concluded on the 6th of March, and her remains were discovered in a shed at the family home in Blountville, Tennessee. The autopsy confirmed that she had passed away from asphyxiation, and Megan was charged with murder, NCA, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, and false reporting, amongst a bunch of other things. Now, horrifically, once again, Megan decided to try and change her story to get away with this and pretended her baby had accidentally kind of rolled over and suffocated herself in her sleep, and said that she panicked and covered it up. She was thankfully found guilty of all charges and was recently given life in prison following a week-long trial.
There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now that everyone should be talking about. This is Dia Abrams. She mysteriously disappeared from her 117-acre California ranch in 2020, and the details surrounding her disappearance are odd. Dia was last seen on June 6, 2020 at around 2:30 p.m. by her boyfriend Keith Harper. The two had been living together since 2016. According to Keith, the two had lunch together at her Bonavista Vista ranch house in Mountain Center, where she told him that she needed to talk to him about something. But the two were reportedly supposed to go on a trip to Colorado the next day, and the property needed worked on, so he pushed the conversation off. He then spent the next several hours mowing the meadow, and during that time, Keith said he received an ominous text from Dia saying, quote, "You cannot save me from all things," end quote. Keith said he then returned to the ranch house at around 7:30 p.m. and Dia was gone. All of her personal belongings, including her Ford F-350, her phone, her purse, and her dog Ruby, were all left behind. Keith said the entire time he was outside on the ranch, he had a clear view of the front gate, and he didn't see anyone enter or leave. He then said that he spent the rest of the night searching for Dia, but when he couldn't find her, he reported her missing the next day to Riverside Police. The very next day, about 26 of Dia's neighbors, friends, and family came out and spent the entire day searching for her on the Bonavista property, but there was no trace of Dia. Her friends recall Keith sobbing that day, saying, quote, "I'll never see her again." It would take the police a few days to come out and search the property, but suspiciously, Keith would leave before they could arrive. According to him, he spent the next week attending business meetings in Arizona and New Mexico, traveling in his RV. He apparently owns property in Arizona and a storage unit business in New Mexico. And like I said, this was all before police could search Dia's property or his RV. Keith claimed to be in contact with the police the entire time, but they actually had to track him down at a storage unit. They were able to search both the RV and the unit and ended up removing a section of the front driver's seat as evidence, as well as a list of evidence from his storage unit that hasn't been made public. Now, Dia's son reportedly learned of his mom's disappearance from her neighbors, not from Keith, the day she was reported missing. And when he went to the Bonavista ranch to search for his mom, he said that her bedroom door looked like it was smashed in from the outside. He also discovered a handwritten note from Dia saying that she was scared for her life. When police officially did come out and search the property, they also found 2 shell casings on the front porch and drops of blood on a sheet in Dia's bedroom. But Keith has explanations for both of those findings. He says that the blood on the sheet is likely from a rare skin condition that he has that makes him bleed easily, and the shell casings on the front porch were probably from him shooting at a coyote. Dia was seen on her neighbor's Ring doorbell video about 5 hours before she disappeared. It was around 9 in the morning, and she was bringing her neighbor a batch of freshly made cinnamon rolls. Her neighbor reportedly had cancer and was going through chemo, and they had mentioned that they really wanted cinnamon rolls.
About you, and it's
So
no
Dia
one
made
else
them for her.
like you is
After
what they're
this,
getting.
she
Positive
vanished.
vibes only.
Multiple searches have taken place,
Shout out to
including the
King Saul's
Bonavista
Falls
Ranch
in the
and one of her
building.
other properties called the Sky High Ranch. At the moment, it's not clear if the third property that she owns has been searched, but it's now been 4 years and Dia is still missing. The timeline of her disappearance is based entirely on Keith's statements, since he was the only one present at the time she went missing, and police have named him a person of interest as a result.
arrested a 23-year-old man. This is 23-year-old Rafael Romero. They have not yet released the girl's cause of death. Her auntie has launched a fundraising page for her family, and she states, "Any support that you can offer to my family at this time, anything is appreciated."
These are pictures with the most disturbing backstories, part 4. Okay, here we have this picture. And the man shown here is just a chef cooking some food. But a little while later, he tosses his head into the fryer, completely deep frying his entire head with oil and dying. And the most messed up part about this is that there's a video of it. Apparently the man was possessed by some sort of ghost or demon, or he had some sort of mental illness, which was even noticed by some of his co-workers. But in the video, the man rotates his head extremely weirdly and inhumane, and just throws his head into the deep fryer with no hesitation, leading people to believe that he was possessed. Because why else would any sane person just throw their head into deep frying oil? I don't recommend anybody watching or searching up the video because it is pretty disturbing. Mainly because it just comes out of nowhere. 1 minute the chef is just cooking food doing his job, and the next he starts twisting his head all weirdly and throws his head into the deep frying oil. I will probably never watch it again, and you should never.
I caught a brain-eating amoeba while swimming in an abandoned pool. My name is Caleb Zielgelbauer, and I was a 14-year-old in 2022 when my family decided to make the most of the summer by exploring local fairs and looking for a seaside house to enjoy our vacation. We found a house with a pool that wasn't in great condition, but the heat made us overlook this detail. We planned to explore nearby beaches and continue enjoying local attractions. However, we had no idea of the nightmare that awaited us. 5 days into our trip, I was plagued by fever, searing headaches, and even hallucinations. The next fragment of memory I managed to retrieve is waking up in a hospital, confused and terrified. Doctors quickly identified the cause of my torment. A brain-eating amoeba, a creature literally feasting on my mind while I innocently enjoyed my vacation. To make the situation even darker, this infection has a staggering mortality rate of 99%. My family was devastated, and I had only a 1% chance of survival. Doctors gave me no more than 4 days to live, but I survived.
So this happened on Sunday. A man has been charged with aggravated assault and other charges after police alleged that he intentionally crashed his car into a Pennsylvania home. This resulted in the vehicle being lodged in the home's roof and the second story. At around 3:15 p.m. on the 6th of August, an incident occurred in Mifflin County, Pennsylvania. A 20-year-old called Evan Miller allegedly drove his vehicle into this home on purpose. Police stated in a news release that they believed that this was an intentional act. Joan Lepley, whose house was the one in question, says that she was with her cousins when they all heard a commotion. Joan heard her relatives shout to her, "There's a man on your roof and there's a car on your roof." The vehicle is thought to have collided with the embankment outside of the house, causing the car to propel upwards into the roof. Thankfully, because of where the car hit on the roof of the house, nobody was injured. If it had hit the ground floor of the house, it could have been a very different outcome. The driver has been charged with multiple charges, including aggravated assault, recklessly endangering another person, and obviously careless driving. After a man disappeared under mysterious circumstances around
My fault. The beats is blasting. The beats is beating. We got some shit to unbox because you know we have new decks on the way. Wait, new waves for the play bay. Tell them to go play with their mother. Coño, bro, y'all.
My life, son.
Sauce the boss. It's his birthday. Everybody wish him happy birthday.
Man. Oh, this is big right here, y'all. Everybody wish Sauce, the official boss. Happy birthday, man.
Get you a bag of that.
Let's go. Let's see it in the timeline.
King Fire, Mr.
I like the.
Can't greet him with two.
I like the. I like to wish
hospital. Let me on this track. Accidents to opera O's and conscious, unconscious.
I like to wish
on my train.
Sauce the Boss a happy birthday.
Imagination.
I like to give a big shout to Ashley Gordon. That's somebody said happy birthday. Charlie Fields.
I got it on my lap when the land soul train line hop up on my dad.
I like how that sounds.
They fear what they don't understand.
I like to give a big happy birthday to Sauce the Boss.
In the middle of the Atlantic
Feel like we in the rooftop or something. You know what I mean?
How bad do you want success? I was
I like to give a big shout to Billy Chapo.
The conscious me woke
The
up
official
and came
capo.
up ahead. I turned 136 into the bombardier.
Shout to Sauce the Boss, man. Happy birthday.
Mr. Clean, dirty talk, come shots, Mr. Rain. The devil tried to catch me slipping, but my third eye open. I see when I don't look. 40 throwing out the ground, the reason the coke.
Call me Megatron Ron.
You can count on
Or
the finger
Teflon
of how
Don.
many people I can trust.
Hey,
Wordplay insane. Meditate, bring down a plane with no passengers on it, facing the blunt.
I like to give a big shout to Boys Roseboro.
Cutting ways